Hey everybody, welcome back. Um, I am speaking from a different location right now. This is my in-laws' apartment in Woodbridge, New Jersey, and so wondering why the city is behind me there. That's why. So anyway, having our bathroom redone, so we actually have this. They're actually not here, so here I am. I'm here with my daughter and my wife. All right, so by the time you see this, I'm recording this on Saturday, just so you know. I'll post it on Monday, this lecture. But you should just be about ready to have your rewrites for the megalomania assignment submitted, which those rewrites are due the end of the day Monday. Um, Also, everybody should have gotten back their crime reaction rewrites. And I was actually quite pleased again with those. Thank you for that. Just have to say, I was a little surprised that a bunch of people didn't do rewrites. I mean, not a majority, but there were probably about 3 or 4 or 5 people who just didn't do rewrites when you had bees or something. So, just remember that like the assignments will start counting more soon. So, you know, it's not a good time to kind of let up on things. Put the foot up on like pick the foot up on the gas pedal, I guess is what they say. So, we really should fight for the highest grade you can get. Okay. So, and I am introducing a new assignment today. I'll be giving away hints about that. So you really should like watch this lecture all the way through. I was going to show the video for the that connects to the megalomania assignment about the real Marv Bronson, the guy. There was again a real life figure who actually this whole assignment was based on. But I want to make sure probably that would probably really like make this a really long video. So next week I actually plan to introduce another topic. So she'll be the last topic I'll introduce for the semester, actually, a new topic. So anyway, so maybe like in next week or in the 2 weeks, I'll show you that actually what happened really happened. Just remember that again, the two things that I saw in that story that were really glaring in terms of like, needing improvement in the megalomania assignment work was just making sure that you had the information that exactly what happened that he left, and also some of those details were important, and should be high up in the story. And I mean, I know they're gross and some of them are even basically disgusting, but basically this is what happened. This is what we have to do. We have to get our hands dirty sometimes and write about this stuff. Okay. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is data journalism. And this actually will connect a bit to the megalomania assignment a bit, because what you're going to be doing is you're actually going to be digging a little bit into data, not too deeply. Don't want to knock that over your head. And this will be posted by Monday, but this is your new assignment. Okay. It's about data journalism. All right. And if you're keeping track with the reading materials, the chapter 18 is probably the one that connects best to this one. And it was one that I had assigned due by this time. So I'm talking about the book, of course. And today's digital age, this is something I talk more about again, digital news writing, than I do in this class. But today's digital age, you're going to be writing about things that not necessarily come from people's mouths. They come based on something like data, documents, that sort of thing. Trend lines. Okay. And there's probably no type of journalism. I mean, I would say that business journalism has probably done better than any form of journalism since the internet became public in 1995 or 94. But there's probably no idea in journalism that's actually exploded more than the idea of a data lists, something that basically shows top to bottom who is leading what, who's the best movies of the year, the best the top 5 songs of the year, that sort of thing. But in order to get that information, but more relevant to what we typically do in the news business, the top 5 towns in New Jersey with the highest tax rates, stuff like that. Those have become, those once were just basically ideas in people's heads. Now they actually put them in story format, and that becomes news. Okay. And so chapter 18 is actually the chapter that basically deals with that mostly. But let's look at like where this type of thing is actually, I mean, what I'm talking about in terms of like data journalism comes in all forms, and it usually comes, like I said, in the form of data that's produced in a document, something that's usually posted on the web or something. But it's also something that can be very subjective. You see it in things like Yelp. Basically, if you type in top restaurants near New Brunswick, or I should say in New Brunswick, I guess. I type this one in because usually it's a little controversial. You look at it, and basically they will put in what they think are they put in the sponsor results first. But you can see here's a list. People love lists. This gives people an idea of where to go, what to do. They're looking for something to do that night. They put in Cousin's Seafood Clam Bar #1, Salt Seafood Oyster Bar #2, Dashin blah 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 #3. I don't even know some of these places. I mean, the Frog on the Peach has been around forever. Okay, now this isn't exactly a story, but basically now we do stories based on lists like these. Okay, we've done, when I was at Patch, we did stories like this all the time. There was a site called Niche. Whenever they would release their top school districts in New Jersey, we would write a story about it. And here's their 2022 version. And they put, if you're in New Jersey residents, you probably recognize some of these towns. Millburn #1, Northern Valley #2, Princeton #3. They're always up there. Livingston, God, all these rich districts, of course. Sometimes I wonder, like, do they really at Westfield? Of course. I mean, again, this is like, these are somewhat well-to-do towns in New Jersey. I know some of you may be from those towns. You might argue with that, but it's true. Pascagoula Valley is like more higher income area of Bergen County, New Jersey, upstate, that sort of thing. Those of you who don't live in the state, I apologize if this is like something that maybe you don't know or don't connect to. That's fine. So anyway, so this is data. Okay, this is the stuff that actually creates news stories. Okay, and how do they typically get this information? Well, they typically get it from what they say is essentially, and they usually have some methodology section where they said they base it on test scores, college data, ratings collected from niche users, basically information, but some of the information they get from actually like the state itself. Okay. And in fact, the state has, and this stuff, it's all searchable by Google, a place where they put all those reports. They put all the average SAT scores for all the towns. They have them all in these lists right here. The amount of money that's provided by the state to each town, that matters a lot, because you could buy more things, books, create more courses, that sort of thing. Graduation rate reports, statewide assessment reports, all this. I'll be showing you a story we did about that. This is a very controversial thing where they actually show, they actually grade each school district. And that's actually like caused a lot of controversy and that sort of thing. So, but actually I could show you now, basically what it's done. What it does is this data, I mean, it can become something like that niche story that I just showed you, or actually when they release the data by the state, what they do is we actually turn it into a story. This was always a very controversial, going back to Patch, my old days at Patch. This was always a controversial story. And then whenever they release the data and information, we turn it into a list. I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie High Fidelity. It's a 22-year-old movie. I really enjoyed it. I guess it's from my Gen X era. But anyway, that was like a thing. Like, it was a very underrated movie, I thought. And it basically you know, the whole theme of the movie was about how this guy was basically like having trouble with romance and that sort of thing, but he was basing everything on top 5 lists, top 10 lists, sort of things like that. He was creating in his head. And so we all kind of laughed about it at the time, but now we actually see stories that do that. Every New Jersey school graded in 2020, where do you rank? Jersey will release its controversial system that grades every school on a 0 to 100 scale. Find out how your school did and how it ranks in 2020. Okay. It's the last time I remember us doing this, actually. I think we did it last year. I'm not sure, but maybe it was suspended for 1 year. I don't remember. But anyway, for the 3rd year in a row, New Jersey has released a controversial rating system that graded every school on a 1 to 100 scale. This in the system educators say paints an incomplete picture of the state's 2,100 schools. Okay. And again, that comes from that line I just showed you right there, the performance reports. And one of those performance reports is this thing called that's based on the Every Student Succeeds Act. And they have to basically come up with a list creating each school district. Okay. What's typically done is, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, sometimes you could put it in the middle of the story, but when you have a long list like this, you can see the story. This story is actually not very long. Okay. But it actually like basically provides some context to how this list was developed. The ratings were established to comply with this act. Okay, they were this determined before the coronavirus outbreak and the school shuttings. Of course, it's put in that context. And then where the information comes from. By the way, not every story has like a lot of anecdotes in it. This story takes a little bit of a different form, where we have more transitions than anecdotes. Okay, so these are all essentially transitions, but just not supplying anecdotes. Okay, the ratings were determined based on this. The rating is, based on this, absenteeism rates and standardized scores like the SAT. Park scores factored in. Park's gone, but basically that was a system of testing students in New Jersey. A little bit more background how it happened. But then there's also reaction. There's actually a human side to these stories too that we typically get. And right here, I mean, this shows the controversy right here. Jersey Schools Sports Association has said a single number or letter grade by itself draws an incomplete picture of school performance and the quality of education provided to its students. So we got some reaction to the story too. So there is a human side to this story too, much like the stories we've done before about like crime. We get a reaction to that actually idea, that trending idea. These are stories about trends. If you look at like Twitter, this is a very popular thing. These lists are usually based on like what's trending. And you can see like what's trending on Twitter. Usually what's trending for me, at least, the war in Ukraine. It's horrible. Foo Fighters drummer died. I'm not sure how. Today's Wordle. I guess people were upset about the Wordle word. I won't say why. Boycott Applebee's. I'm not really sure what that's about. But anyway, what these stories essentially do is they actually show a trend. Okay. And the trend in this particular case is like what schools are doing well on these, what or not. You can see actually what's interesting about this is that it's not the same as this niche list. You actually see Jersey City's charter school up here. Individual schools are a really long list, actually. You see Rumson on here. That's a very rich town, but you see Jersey City on here. That's not necessarily a rich school district. So this is actually a different way of evaluating school districts. And actually just curious to see, did I put every single freaking school on here? I guess I must have put like the top 1,000 or something. So anyway, these are actually individual schools, not districts themselves. So I must have put every school district on here. Wow. Okay. And then, there's also a controversial list because it shows what school districts schools are at the bottom. Okay. And we go down to I guess it's every school. You go down to the very bottom, you'll see like Hampton Borough, Camden, this sort of thing. These are school districts, schools that actually did very low. Trenton, it's unfortunate, but a lot of people don't like that, but it is news because people want to know, like how their school stands. That matters for more than things like schools. It determines like where people live, especially in New Jersey. New Jersey has a situation where they have like school districts for every single town. so many other states, almost every other state has like regional districts, and we have those too, but usually at the high school level. But we have, we actually have school, they call it home rule. We have school districts almost every single town. And there's like 565 towns, so. All right, so anyway, so that's just one example right there. I was gonna show you something else, actually, another thing that like, my kids showed me this, I did the letterbox thing. That's another thing that's become popular. People like to make their own lists of movies and sort of things. I put with the Oscars coming this weekend, and by Monday, I saw 8 of the Oscar movies, by the way. And by the time you watch this, I'm just going to tell you that if Coda wins, I'm going to be not so happy, because I think that it was a nice movie, but I just don't think it was the best movie. It was, it's very nice, very great that they did a story about the subject matter and everything they did and everything, but but I really think that Power of the Dog should be number 1. In fact, I even put it in my best movies ever list. I think Shawshank Redemption is the best movie ever. Ha ha ha. Do the Right Thing, number 2. Godfather, 50th anniversary. Apocalypse Now, Schindler's List. Blah, blah. I also have like what I call the best bad movies ever. This is a real Gen X boomer thing to do, I guess. And I had my daughter watch Weekend at Bernie's, which I consider the best bad movie ever. I have Jackass number 2, Point Break number 3, Revenge of the Nerds. Anyway, so that's what I consider some of the best bad movies ever. Most underrated movies. There's High Fidelity, movie I just mentioned. I have that number 1. Most overrated movies ever. This is going to be controversial. I have Gone with the Wind number 1. I just think that movie's so overrated. Birth of a Nation, I have number 2, because I can't believe that movie is on any list. It's a freaking crazy racist movie. Unbelievable. I mean, I'm sorry. I don't care if they had new techniques in 1915 to make that. It's a freaking racist movie, and it shouldn't be on any list. It's the subject matter is all wrong to begin with. So why is that a good movie? If you ever seen Black Klansman, you'll see why it's a bad movie. Okay. Casablanca, I'm sorry. I think that was a very well made movie, but I don't think it was like a top movie like people make it out to be. I have that up high. Wizard of Oz. Anyway. All right. So anyway, going back to this. So yeah, you can see how like when the purpose of this is in this last half of the semester is I'm trying to show you basically more skillful reporting exercises, that sort of thing, and where information comes from. And it does, like I said, it doesn't usually come from people's mouths. It comes from places like here. And then when they release this information, it becomes a story here. Okay. I have examples, actually, some of these examples I listed in actually the assignment entry itself. New Jersey school districts are the most drug alcohol cases. I know that's probably like be a little exploitive, but it's a story that people have done. Again, it shows like, reaction from like the acting commissioner of education, those sort of things, and the districts that have the highest rates of those. That's another example right there. And then the list is at the bottom, typically. Okay. Okay, that goes to the assignment itself. The chapter 18 that I talked about, it actually deals with investigative reporting, this chapter, but it's the closest I get to like data journalism. And we're not really doing, don't be thrown off by that. We're not really doing investigative journalism, maybe at the very lowest level. Okay. I'm not asking you to go to any like parking decks or anything like that, interview like confidential sources or, people like Bill Borden doing the, a source within inside the company. I'm not asking you to do that. Okay. I'm just asking you to do something that basically, again, do something that leaps off the page. You just don't like in journalism, we just don't want to like rewrite what's basically spat at us. Okay. We just don't want to take people's word for it. We want to be original. We want to come up with our own ideas. Okay. And now, thank goodness, and I sound really old when I say this, but thank goodness for the internet. Now we actually have the opportunity to access these records. When back before 1995, 94, we had to basically really dig and go through boxes and stuff like that to get this information. We'd have to like go to the actual agency itself or the council that or the town hall that had kept all these papers and stuff in boxes to come up with information like this. If we wanted to like get information, I remember like getting information one time on school bus accident reports, and I had to like go to Trenton and I had to like dig, and I had to go through all these different boxes to get the information and stuff. Now this stuff, a lot of it's not on the web and it should be, but much of it is on the web. So, chapter 18, I'm going to basically point you toward, maybe like jumping a bit to page 399, where they talk about the resources, okay, that are available to people now to do these stories. So, once it says, once you develop a story idea, pitch to editor, investigative reporters, or reporters, must determine what resources are needed and accessible. Can reliable human sources be developed for that story, or records or documents available? Okay, so, when you're doing stories about crime, that sort of thing, whatever you're doing, any kind of story that requires something that maybe is not available through a person, you have to actually research it, and you have to do things like, even like maybe it's just start with a Google search, you get that information, which I'll be talking about in a bit. You talk about the importance, obviously, of planning the story, and planning the story means also like actually like understanding where you're going to get that information. And, right here, they actually list a bunch of those places where you would get that information. Okay. Basically you have like, biographies, you don't want to use Wikipedia. Obviously, that's always been told, don't use Wikipedia because that's actually self-written, that sort of thing. I mean, that goes back to what you're probably told in high school, like, don't use Wikipedia. And it was even a joke on this show, The Office, about how, like, was it Michael Scott? If you watch that show, so Wikipedia is the greatest thing ever, but that's supposed to show irony, because what a lot of, like, Scott says is idiotic. There's a lot of things that Wikipedia does that's wrong. There's public records available on the web. There's budgets, there's contracts, there's payroll, licenses, lawsuits, things like that. There's news releases, that are on the web, which actually that's something you really got to keep in the back of your mind at this point right now, and in the front of your mind, because that's going to be connected with the story we're going to do. Financial reports, things like that. And then typically this information is like available through public agencies. Like Megalomania, you had to actually go through a spokesman to get the voucher, for Marv Bronson. But that's a private company, so you wouldn't typically get that information, even though it's publicly traded. But anyway, in this particular case, you're going to actually have to, in public agency, and then the story you're going to be doing is actually going to be through a public agency. It's going to be publicly available. So these are like a lot of the things that are actually medical records usually. These are actually show what's private: personal letters, bank statements, stuff you can't typically get unless it's maybe leaked to you through a source or whatever, But this sort of stuff is stuff like taxes, tuition increases and rates and things like that. Think of that. Keep that in mind for your story. Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, all those things are now available and on the web. You can help create, and like I showed you with the school reports, create stories on their own when the information is actually released. And of course, it's not just a matter of just reporting the data, but also like getting context and explanation for how the information came up, how it was developed, and basically maybe getting like reaction to it, okay, is important, okay? I'm just kind of shifting through chapter 18 here. Statistics, obviously, that's actually what the data we're talking about. There's things like budgets, taxes, census data. Census data is interesting because it actually, like, you could find stuff like, the highest, we've done stories about like what towns have the highest and lowest property values in the state. Yes, of course, there's also always ethical issues, but there's so much that's actually like out there that actually can help create stories on their own. Okay. All right. So let's go to the story itself that will be officially posted by Monday morning. This is your 5th assignment, spring 2022 data journalism assignment. Actually, if you look at essentially like on the modules, you'll see that we're in keeping with what with our schedule here. We did the PR writing, we did the major assignment preparation. Don't forget that's due also. Okay, I asked for an idea by the end of Monday, and I'm going to evaluate it and basically give you an idea whether you're on the right track or not. Okay. But then when you go to week 11, March 28th, which is Monday, you'll see that data journalism. This is a assignment I've actually left out in previous years because for whatever reason, things have happened, come up because of COVID or whatever. It's actually, we are on schedule here. Data journalism, okay, while data has always been central to work of a journalist, digital technology has changed the data as available and the channels through which data can be accessed and distributed. Talking to people face-to-face, attending events as they take place will never replace by databases, but a writer's ability to access and translate large sets of information has become important as a traditional skills of connecting with people and understanding cultural contexts, okay? And then, next thing we're going to do is actually feature news. So we'll be talking a bit about that next week. Okay. All right. So let's go to again back to the assignment itself. Sorry, do a little cutaway there. And like I said, see, it's not actually posted yet. Okay. So I'm going to try to walk you guys through this a bit because, this might be kind of like the Megalomania thing. Unlike Megalomania, though, you're going to have 2 weeks to do this. So it's going to be due April 11th. So don't fret. Okay. And of course, if you want to be enterprising and that sort of thing, then you're going to basically, reach out to me and see if you're on the right track. Okay. I mean, that's class participation. I have to do that because look, I have to basically try to encourage you guys to do that because how am I supposed to rate how you guys are actually participating? I think that's a very important part of this class. You can't just roll here and get A's or whatever on your assignments, but not expect me to kind of evaluate based on how hard you're working. I mean, maybe you're a genius, maybe you're not. That's great, if you are, but I think everybody has to work a little bit to get to that A, at least a little bit. Okay. So, and if you get B pluses in this class, you should definitely be striving to get an A on your rewrites. And that's why I was kind of flabbergasted when I saw Megalomania, or I saw the crime reaction stories and I saw B pluses and Bs, and people didn't rewrite that to an A. I mean, I think just about every single person who got a C or higher, just about, not everybody, I got a C or higher on the first draft on the crime reaction story, ended up getting an A on the rewrite. Okay, and I think there were a few rewrites, a few R's who got A's. So, there was one student, I'm going to say this out loud, who's been getting good grades all semester, but didn't turn his Megalomania assignment at all. So sent out several notes to him. He never got a response from him. I'm really kind of stunned by that. But just know that that's actually going to factor into class participation too, if you just don't turn in an assignment, okay? Anyway, and that assignment itself will be an F if you don't turn it in, so. All right, so anyway, going back to the assignment, you're going to incorporate the elements of data journalism into a story that focuses on Rutgers tuition, okay? All right, so that's actually what the data point here is going to be Rutgers tuition, okay? So typically in data journalism, the story is very, very similar to the stories we've already done, with a main theme identified in the lead that identifies a trend. The ensuing graphs provide context, explanation, and reaction. Okay, going back to what I was saying before about where the information came from, blah, blah, blah. I showed you some of these stories already. The difference is that there's an additional layer of data that's added to this story. And that additional layer is what I showed you before. It's you have your story, and then at the bottom you have a list, or like I said, a lot of times this is actually, if you have a long list like this, it really should be at the bottom. Okay. But if you have a top 10 and that's it, that could be in the middle. Okay. But you have to kind of frame it in the right context. You have to basically say in your lead, basically what the trend is. They release this information. Okay. And, it's probably a good idea to actually highlight a little bit within the story, who's at the top of the list. Here's one that actually shows the substance abuse cases, things like that. It was released. It talks about how teen vaping may be driving up the numbers because that's actually included in the substance abuse. And then we actually we have the list at the bottom here, but in the story itself, we actually identify who's at the top. We say Mahwah had the highest increases. Red Bank Regional had one of the highest numbers, in Hazlitt, okay, in Jersey. So we identify some, we kind of use that as an opportunity to kind of summarize a little bit what the list means and who's at the top. Okay. Okay, so you can see the story identifies a trend, a little detail on that trend, such as what that list means, who is at the top of the list, how the list developed, where the information came from, and then reaction to the list. Okay. And then, of course, there's the list itself. No fancy graphic, just a list showing who pays the most in taxes, who has the most substance abuse cases. I'm just listing some general topics, or who has allegedly the best performing schools, or in this assignment's case, when Rutgers had tuition increases over the last 5 years. That's what this story is going to be about. Okay. So here is the typical structure that follows a similar format to what we've done. Not many anecdotes in this story, so that part will be different. Okay. So you have a lead that identifies the trend, or the release and the trend, basically, whatever. Okay, in this case, it's going to be the Rutgers tuition increases over the last 5 years. Okay, and big hint, by the way, they didn't happen every year. Okay, but that's what you're going to write about. Rutgers tuition goes up all the time, but it is actually important that point that out that it does go up. Okay. And maybe the important thing is to actually show the trend. What exactly is the trend of tuition increases at Rutgers University over the last 5 years? Okay. Okay. Then transition. What does this list mean? I mean, basically, maybe a further explanation. What is it? What exactly, like, you basically identify, that this is the trend, and then like basically explain like maybe a little bit about like what was the trend, why was there, what was the increase in that this past year, or 18, whatever, that sort of thing. Okay. Then you basically get into a little bit of the why. Okay, why did tuition or taxes go up in this particular case? We're going to talk about, and actually I'll talk a little bit about that because the source for your information are going to be Rutgers news releases. Okay, and hopefully if you've watched this video to this point, you're going to find out how you're going to get to that information. Okay, who's at the top of the list, or what are the years that we had maybe the biggest increases. These are all transitions that basically could be like 1 or 2 paragraphs that build onto your story. Okay, how is the information put together, where did it come from, basically just identify like, Rutgers news releases reported that. Okay, you want to make sure that those are attributed, much like the voucher, you attributed information, the megalomania assignment, to the voucher. And then you get into the reaction. Okay, you get a reaction from people who are actually personally affected by this stuff. And then you maybe get into an anecdote or two, basically showing, like in this particular case, like how people have to work harder and actually have to take jobs, additional jobs and everything in order to, pay for this tuition, that sort of thing. Okay. So here's what you need to do. You need to find through Google information on Rutgers tuition. I meant to put an "on" in there. Over the last 5 years, I found them. Okay. And list them. Okay. The list is typically placed at the bottom of the story. Okay. Frame your story's theme around what happened. Did Rutgers tuition increase each year over the past 5 years? Did it increase 1 year but stay the same over 4? I strongly encourage you to do this, to figure this out early, and then report to me what you found. Okay, because then I can help you. Okay. As I noted earlier, once you identify that theme, that trend, provide some explanation. Usually comes in the form of Rutgers news release that actually shows it. Okay. Indeed, there is a release from Rutgers that explains why the university did what it did over the last 2 years. Okay. And I'll show you that in a sec. Address why these tuition decisions were made. Rutgers released information through its news release, blah, blah, blah. Basically saying this is why it went up. Okay. And then, toward the bottom of the story, okay, you write each person, you basically do this. Each person will interview 2 or 3 students, or really collect the information from, and get the reaction to tuition to Rutgers University overall, whatever trend you find out. That reaction is typically lower in the story. To help you guys out, because again, a lot of you don't actually live here, and you're all across the globe or whatever, I posted a discussion point, just like I did with the crime reaction story, that will help provide that reaction. So please participate in that too. So I'm asking you to put on 2 hats again. Put on your reporter hat, do that story, be objective, okay? But also put on your Rutgers student hat, basically reacting to whatever the trend is. Okay. I know some of you haven't been at Rutgers for like, 5 years, but you might have a reaction to the fact that tuition has followed a certain trend that it's found. Please write a 500 word story that doesn't include the list itself, okay? And do a straight lead, okay? And this will be due April 11th, okay? And then of course, this is the discussion point right here. Where the hell is it? Sorry. Okay, so what is your opinion on Rutgers tuition? Please respond to that. Is it affordable? Is it trending the wrong way? Is it necessary? You may get people to talk about like, not just like, oh, it's bad, let's follow this trend, but maybe I've had people before basically say like, well, actually like, I could understand why it's necessary. I went here and I kind of fully expected what I got, okay? Here's how you can easily find this information. I'm trying to get you guys to do what you did with Bill Borden. That is like, not just like take people's word for it, but basically find things on your own, okay? So I typed in Rutgers tuition increase, okay? And look what came up. All this was reported in news releases over the last 5 years. I was able to find each one of them, okay? The great thing about this most recent one, which is released right here at the top of your Google search, is it actually talks about not just this past year, but the last 2 years, because there was actually, I'm giving something away, a freeze during COVID, okay? It talks about how there was an increase of 2.6%. And when you list the increase, you could just list the percentage, it's fine, okay? To say basically the year and the increase, okay? Or the year, and if there was no increase, like there was in the 2021 academic year, it was 0 because it was a freeze on tuition. See, like it's your answers for the previous 2 years are actually right here in this very first paragraph. How about that, huh? But the great thing about this is that actually when I talk about like try to get information on why this happened or what happened here, there's actually their explanation is right here. I mean, obviously you don't want to get just their opinion on it, which is why I also asked you guys to also interview students, provide like a counterbalance, a balance to the story. So this is the reaction from the actual university itself. The budget allows us to provide what is more important, excellent academic institution and in research opportunities for our students, first-rate patient care, blah, blah, blah. They got to pay for things, they're saying, okay, pay for a better education. We're committed to providing affordable higher education. We urge our students to focus, blah, 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 on net costs, blah, 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 financial assistance. So there's explanation here that like you incorporate in your story. And I would take it right from this news release right here. Because this is the most related, this is the latest news on it. They haven't actually announced what's going to happen in the 2022-2023 year yet, so you don't have to worry about that. But this is the most recent news release on it. So how are you going to find the previous years? Well, I found it by doing this. When I did a Google search on that, I actually did a Google search on that, and when I did it, I actually found other news articles. I'm fine with you actually using other news articles as a source, but it's going to be difficult to attribute that. You just basically have to find a way to basically say that, which is that according to NJ.com and Rutgers news releases or something, just to kind of like you got to find a way to attribute that information to wherever source you got it. You see, the Daily Targum reported it too. Let's see here. And actually, here's college students compare. Here's NorthJersey.com. That's the Bergen Record. Okay, they reported on what happened in the 2020 year. Okay, before COVID, I guess. So there's other news organizations, but you don't necessarily have to rely on that. Okay, you can get it right straight from the horse's mouth. This is how I found it here. You click on Rutgers Today, which provides the news releases. Okay, and then when you go there, see, I'm asking you guys to be. I mean, I shouldn't be giving this away, but I'm actually doing this also as a test to see if you're actually like paying attention to like these videos, I gotta admit, okay? But if you do a search, okay, search Rutgers Today, and then you put in tuition, okay, you actually see the releases that show where their tuition went. Here's actually the 2020 release to show the tuition freeze. So there's 2020 right there. Here's the release I just showed you guys, 2021. So there's 2 years right there. So that's 2. Okay, then you like scroll down a little more and you see 2019. Okay, so that's 3. So we got 2019, 20, 20, 21. Then you scroll down a little more. Here's 2017, but actually, like, so we got 3 years. I guess that's the, yeah, so we got 2017. That only one we're missing now is, so it went up that year. Only one we're missing is 2018. If you scroll down a little more, you see they don't really care about order right here. There's 2018. So there's your answer right there. Okay. There's the news releases, and that actually explains, you know, why they went up and everything that happened and why it froze that one particular year. Okay. Okay. I guess the feeling there was that, I don't know, I didn't actually read this news release, but basically, you know, I think if I remember correctly, it was basically the idea was that people were getting hit hard because they were like not able to go to work and stuff like that. And also people were like not getting the academic experience that they were, you know, getting by not, you know, because they weren't able to actually go to this actual dormitories and stuff like that and actually sit in the classrooms. So, you know, basically unprecedented crisis, things like that. All right. So that is the that is how you get that information. Okay. All right. So that is your new assignment. Okay. And we'll talk more about that new assignment. Okay. And of course, debating what to do about the assignment after that, whether they're to actually introduce that next week or the week after, leaning toward the week after. That will be the feature assignment that we talked about already. And then that will be the next to last assignment that you have due, the feature assignment. This is the third, I guess you could say this will be the third to last assignment you'll have due for the year. And then we'll do the feature assignment. And then you'll have the major assignment, which again, the proposal has to be submitted by Monday, okay, end of Monday. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to email you guys back and basically get what, you know, it's whether it's approved or not, maybe give you a little bit of suggestion how to attack it. Just a little note on that. I saw some of the ideas already. Gave me like, you know, you gotta make it manageable, something that you can actually do. Okay. And it's not, you're not writing you're not doing an investigative piece. You're not doing a fun creative story or something like that. Somebody, I'm not trying to make fun of the person or anything like that. Somebody suggested doing the NBA playoffs. And I was like, well, okay, fine. But like, how are you going to do that? You know, I mean, are you going to actually write about the playoffs? I mean, you're going to get reaction from our students. I want something timely and newsy here. You know, we have 2 teams in the area that actually could make the playoffs. I mean, I'm going to interview the players. I'm talking about the Philadelphia 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. The Knicks, my team, appear to be out of it. So, you know, so I'm actually asking you guys to do a story where you can actually get direct contact to people who are actually like related to whatever topic you plan on doing. Okay. And that would be people you want to basically do something that basically involves your community. Okay. You know, for tuition, I mean, I'm asking you guys to get reaction from students, you know, for that, because that's your community, you know, and it also provides a counterweight, a counterbalance to the information that the university provided for why they raised tuition over the last 5 years. Not every year, but they did raise tuition. I won't say how many times. I just showed you where to find that out. But you know, you get reaction from your community, the people you actually talk to. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for in terms of that assignment. Okay. That's again going to be due the last day of class. All right. And I'm going to be posting that one soon too. Okay. The major assignment actual story, which is again an idea that you create on your own. Okay. And you know, it'll have an entry for basically submitting that assignment when it's due. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks very much. And it was enjoyed talking to you guys again. And that's it. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks very much.